look at phase 2, phase 2 is basically the questionnaire, the spreadsheet, and the database, right? So this one, if you looked at the planning, doesn't take as long as phase 1 does, right? So what have we got in phase 1 now? We've got the report, the table of contents. You could add that if you wanted to, or you did that already when you did the headings. You've got the introduction, right? And underneath the introduction, you've got the task definition and the focus question. Then you've got the discussion and analysis, which is the body. You've got your 3 headings below them, and you've got the summary of information below the 3 headings already, okay? Then you could have the bibliography. Okay, so you've got a heading for findings and conclusions. Is it recommendations? I can't remember now, but you've got those headings, nothing there yet, all right? And then you've got the bibliography, which you could have inserted if you wanted to already. And then you've got the source table. In number 1, you've got the screenshot. Number 2, or the appendices at least, and then you've got the source table. And then number 3, you've got the declaration. All right? So basically, that's where we are at the moment for phase 1. Then you're going to take that report and you're going to copy it to your phase 2 folder, the same report at least, okay? And that's as far as we've gone. We've marked the cover page, we've marked the task definition, the focus question, we've marked the table, but we basically haven't marked the rest yet. We'll only mark that in phase 3, okay? Right, now let's continue. So now you need to create and conduct a questionnaire. So when you create the questionnaire, and in the past I've been saying you can, and you can still do that, create the questionnaire in Word if you want them to revise their form controls, right? But this year I've changed my mind, and I'm feeling for Google Forms, seeing that we don't have enough time for everything. So I'll show you a little bit about Google Forms this year, all right? But you are free to administer or create the questionnaire everywhere, anywhere you want to. SurveyMonkey, I know some people do it there. So basically creating the questionnaire doesn't matter. The only problem that we might experience is that when you create it somewhere else, you need to have access to be able to mark it, or do you want the learners to make a screenshot of it and put it somewhere so that you can see it? Or do you want them to create it in Word and also in SurveyMonkey? That's up to you. All right.
What if they give you a form in Access?
And then when he administers, he just completes it.
Yeah. No problem.
I don't think so. Because remember now, if he does it in Access, then like Google Forms goes to the spreadsheet, while Access form will go to Access, then there's no capturing necessary. I don't think it's a problem.
Personally, I did it once. Just don't put a drop-down question that allows multiple options. It creates chaos in the report. So for that reason, I would say no. That's why I stopped doing it. Because if you have multiple options and the questionnaire often has a question where you can tick more than one option, it's horrible to do it.
Right, then you have to have at least 25 completed questionnaires, right? So they can be more, but they shouldn't be less, okay, than 25. So let's see. 5 questions, excluding biographical data. So name, surname, age, address, etc. counts as biographical data, while the 5 questions should be around the topic. So that's what the question should be. You may use the biographical data for one or other calculation, but the physical question should be about the topic. Okay? Then store the completed questionnaires. When you store the completed questionnaires, it depends how you want to do it. We still have schools that print out the questionnaires 25 times, then they scan it in and save it in their folders. That's not a problem. You can let them create 25 Word questionnaires if they want to, or in this case now with Google Forms, as I will show you, you will have the results of 25 respondents. Okay? So you should have results for 25, basically. How you have those results, up to you. Right, so let's see. What should this questionnaire contain? it should have content controls. So consider that when you're using something else besides Word. And she asked me about access. Consider the fact that you want certain data types. Alright? So these content controls that you're supposed to use should store some of the data types. For example, text would be one, number would be one, maybe a yes, no, maybe a drop down, maybe a currency, I don't know. Consider the fact that there are different data types that you need to work with. Alright? Then there should be appropriate headings, and when there's appropriate headings, there could be one for biographical data and one for questions. That is appropriate heading. Okay? Clear instructions. So when we do the Google Forms, you will have instructions. Now again, some people find clear instructions should be an instruction for each question, and some people find that clear instructions is a general instruction on top. We need to mark it according to the T on the marking guideline. We'll get there. Alright? Then related questions should be grouped together under relevant headings, and there should be professional formatting and layout. Why am I leaning towards Google Forms this year? Because the professional layout is automatic, firstly. The headings are kind of there because you've got the sections. 5 questions, okay, fair enough. The instructions you can put in on top, and you can actually put it in the questions if you want. Appropriate headings would be the sections or the topic, depends, and content controls are automatic. Okay? So let's see. When you consider the questions, consider the data types. Text, number, date, yes, no, currency, etc. Okay? And also consider Google Forms or SurveyMonkey or whoever's data types. Because remember, when we do calculations towards the end, we should actually have some kind of data types to be able to do calculations. Okay? For example, number. Let's see. If you want to go and figure out how to make a questionnaire, there's a link there that again Claire shared, that you go and figure out how to develop a questionnaire for research, which is interesting. Okay, some more tips. Right. I'm going to quickly, bear with me those of you that know, but those of you that don't, show you how to create a Google form. Alright? So, here's my Google form that I have at the moment, saving my Saola. Okay. And this is what it looks like at the moment. Alright. Before you let your kids create a Google form, all of them should have a Google account, obviously. So a Gmail account, for example. So create a Gmail email account for all your kids. Okay, firstly. Secondly, there should be internet in your class, obviously. Alright? They need to be able to share it to different people. They can share it with a link or they can share it through email. You can decide. Okay. So let's see. Here's my Google form. Alright. Just for the sake of people not knowing, I'm going to go to my Google Drive. So when you log in, you will go to your Google Drive. When I started working at the district, everybody told me, no, use this route, no, use that route. And then eventually I got so confused that I got lost every single time I had to go to school, until I figured out, you know what, I'll stick to the routes that I know, because all of us can do different routes and all of us can use different directions to get to the same place, as long as you all get to the same place. So this is my way of doing it. There are different ways in which you can do this. It doesn't matter, but this is my way. Alright, so let's see. I'm in my Google Drive now, ne? Okay. When I say new, what I'm going to create is a Google form. Right? Now, immediately, when I say create a Google form, it comes up with a form. Okay, I've started one so long. Where is my Google form? This one. I've started one. Then I've got the heading. Alright. I can give instructions. over here. I can select whether I'm gathering email addresses, the biographical information, another heading, name and surname. I can decide whether it's required or not. Okay, so for example, name and surname could be required. I would put name in one and surname in another, because later on when we do access, one of the things that we mark is that it's got separate entities, separate individual ones. So I would put name and surname as separate. Okay, and then I can choose what I want to gather over here. Alright, so let's see. Here's my second section. I can include a second section if I want. Right, there's my sections. Add the section. So I've got two sections at the moment. I've got one for my heading and biographical data, and I've got one for my questions. Alright, and it said it should be grouped, so it automatically happens over here. Right, so now I'm going to ask questions. So when I want to insert a question, I just click on the plus, all right, and then I can ask the question like, what can be done to save the planet? Right. I can choose over here what type of question I want. All right. Consider the data types in Excel and Access when you do this. All right. So we could have a short answer, which is text. We could have multiple choice, which will become a drop down later on. We could have checkboxes. That could be a checkbox or a drop down, or it doesn't matter. We could have a drop down. Okay. Then we could have a file upload, which in Access could be an attachment. Not a good idea, but possible. One kid would think about that. There's a linear scale that looks like this. Okay, so this is my linear scale. Then I'm asking a question and I'm asking a child's opinion on that. How much do we harm the planet? 1, not much, and 10, too much. That is a number. Think about the data type. It could be a number later on. It could be a scale, a sliding scale that you could use. For 5 is average, or at least 1 is below average, 2 is average, and 3 is above average, something like that. Okay. I can, what else have I got here? A multiple choice grid that could become a combo box later on, a list box later on, right? Tick box grid, date and time. So can you see the different types, data types that Google Forms allow us? All right. And then I can decide here whether I want it to be required or not. Okay. If I want it to be required, then a little red star appears there, then it means that the person can't continue to the next question without answering this question. All right. And then there are my questions. Again, consider the data types. All right. Let me delete this question. How do we harm the planet? Options. Remember, it's a questionnaire, ne? So we need to teach the kids that there are certain options that we choose. That's why it's a questionnaire and not an open-ended question. All right. And there should be 5 questions. So it's easy to have the 5 questions at the bottom. All right. Then I've got text here, if you can see that. I could have a number over here, and then I thought about having a currency or something that I can convert this to a currency. But as you saw, the data types here could be date and time. All right. Could be a date stamp on when he completed it. Doesn't matter. Or it could be his birth date, or it could be some kind of something that they think of. All right. Right. Once I'm done, I'm going to share the Google form. Now, you can share it in different ways. You can send an email to a specific person, so they can email it to themselves, and then they can actually pick it up on their phones if they want to. So they can email it to the people, and then it can allow you to include the form in the email where they actually fill it in, or they fill it in literally in the email. Alright, so it's either you send it as an attachment in the form or you actually literally fill it in. It doesn't matter how they do it as long as it's completed. Alternatively, you can have an attachment, and while we're here, just show them the tiny URLs, the short URLs, how to shorten it. And now we have an opportunity for teaching. So I clicked on the shorten URL there. Did you see that? Alright. That means now I can teach them that why are we shortening URLs while I'm here? So it's a teaching opportunity. Okay, while we're teaching this, we can just as well teach them some theory. I can copy the link, and then this link can be sent through WhatsApp, through email, through whatever. Alright, and then once they've completed the form, you can create a Google Sheet. There's my responses. Alright, currently I'm the only person that has responded, so basically this is the only answers I have at the moment. So there's automatically the visualization of the data can be shown here. In other words, create a Google form, have some responses, and then show them, okay, so now we have the answers. How do we actually go and visualize this through Excel? So maybe they've got an idea of, okay, I've got the spreadsheet now. Okay, so I can create a graph with this. Or I can create this type of graph with this. See the teaching opportunity. Show them, okay, when do we use a pie? When do we use a column? Alright, but you have to have some responses over here. Okay. Then it creates the spreadsheet for you. Okay, so once it's created the spreadsheet for you, you can actually go and download the spreadsheet as Excel. The capturing is automatically done. Alright, that means there should be 25 responses over here, and that means that the only thing they need to do now is, remember our Excel will have, and I'll get to that again, more or less 3 sheets. One for the responses, one for the summary, and one for the graphs. Okay, so here are the responses already, so they basically just need to go and format it so that it looks nice, but it's already done. Okay, the only disadvantage of using Google Forms is, well, not the only, but the two that I can think of right now, is all of them should have a Gmail account or a Google account, and there should be internet in class. Alright? Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Again, if you want to send them home to go and do the Google form at home, that's not a problem. Just be careful that when they come, they didn't copy each other's.
Can I just quickly tell something? The first year we did Google Forms, half the kids forgot their password. And they struggled retrieving the password, and so we couldn't get the results afterwards. So personally, what I recommend is as soon as they make the Google form, there's a button next to send where you can add collaborators. And let them add you as an editor and a collaborator so that if that happens, you can retrieve the data. Yeah, that's just a very good fail-safe because we had a disaster that one year. The kids had all their stuff filled in, but then we couldn't get the results.
Okay. How do you mark it? The other thing I have a problem with is how do you physically mark it? Because if the kids do the word form, all right, it's easy because you can see that there are controls and there are things there. You can see that. How do you physically mark the Google form? You can solve your problem. If you're a collaborator, fine. Okay. Alternatively, you can download it. All right. Alternatively, you can ask them to just put a screenshot somewhere of their Google form. So it doesn't matter how you get to mark it. There's no pre-required way of marking it as long as it can be marked. Okay. I think it's time for us to start moving forward. We've been doing it in Word for 102 years now, so maybe we can do it in Google Forms for the next 200 years, and then we'll change it. Okay. Any questions on Google Forms? No. Okay. Anybody wants to share something that they've experienced like Claire now? We will learn from your mistakes.
Got another one. The date of birth field type, if you choose date as the type, people filling it in on a cell phone, not all cell phones have an easy to go back with months and things. So the respondents get lazy because it takes too long to get to the right date, so they just choose any year. So I've actually started with Google Forms asking the day, month and date separate so that we don't have that problem. And then it's a nice way in Excel to have a date function to put the three back together again.
Can they fill in all in on Google Forms? Can they fill in 25 in themselves?
I suppose they could.
They can. So what you do is you preview it, right? And then once you've previewed it, that's what I did, and then you can fill it in, and then it's there, right? So once I've previewed my form, go for it. I just fill it in, and then preview it again and fill it in. And well, just submit and submit and submit and submit and submit. Then you get 25 copies, 25 personalities.
Fotiene,
Yes.
would you recommend to start with this in grade 10, or must you rather in grade 10 a Word one?
I think in grade 10 the problem is they haven't done form controls yet. But I would personally start in grade 11, not 10. Just give them an idea in grade 10. Okay, this is a questionnaire, so let's create it. But then if you can, I would not let it start in grade 12 because I want them to be experienced in grade 12. So I'd start in grade 11 if I could.
I think for the purpose of putting the information together, Google Forms might be the best. But now when I'm looking at on the other end, isn't that I want my learners to do the form controls on their own. The Google Forms, they are already done, which means I don't think they will learn much.
I think what I think you could do is, remember there has to be an original questionnaire, and I'm not saying do it in Word, don't get me wrong, you can do it in Word, but I like using the pack for revision purposes. So do it in Word with your form controls and then get your revision thing sorted out. But for exposure, it could be done in Google Forms, because remember this is kind of things that come in a theory paper. Alright? So while we are here, just teach them something about that, because there are questions about emails, for example, or how online things could be filled in and so on. So this is a good teaching opportunity for theory. The same thing with the visualization. Like I showed you the responses, for example. These are things for information management that come out in the theory question paper, right? So as exposure, you don't have to necessarily let them go and do it in Google Forms, but at least show them that this is what can be done in Google Forms, so it helps for them to understand what we're talking about. The problem with theory at the moment is that the kids don't visualize what we tell them, they just hear it. And we know that the kids nowadays need to see things for them to understand. So use this as a teaching opportunity. But if it was me, I would work in an extra class. We have time anyways in phase 2. I would let them do it in Word and let them do it in Google Forms, just for the sake of it, if I could. Anything else from Google Forms? I just think that we need to focus on teaching while we are doing this. We tend to be doing PAT in isolation, and paper 1 in isolation, and paper 2 theory in isolation. This is a teaching opportunity that we have. Let's use it. Alright? But then again, we need the revision too, ne? Okay, let's see. Where was I? Right, marks. Clear instructions guide the users in answering of the questions. If there's a question to me that's not clear, I don't know what to fill in. For example, that one I showed you with we don't save the planet or we do save the planet, and I'm not clear on the scale, for example, is 1 low and 10 high, is 10 low and 1 high, and I am filling it in and I'm not clear, I won't give this mark. Alright? Also, I would find them to at least have some kind of something. Please take 5 minutes to fill in this questionnaire. What, can be anonymous, what. Alright? That's the right thing to do. We're not forcing them to do something that's not real. This is authentic. So we want them to learn that if you give a person a questionnaire, you have to have some kind of instruction. Alright? Then questions provide answers that cannot be found in other sources. Now these are the types of questions. So teaching opportunity, this is what we use questionnaires for. These are the types of questions that we ask. Change in marking guideline. The questions enable processing in spreadsheets and or databases. So it would enable, in this case it would enable, or it enabled it already because we've done the questionnaire already. So basically it must be statistical. For one, it should be a number, it should be a date, it should be a text, and it should be a yes, no possibly, and it should be a drop down. But there should be some kind of calculation that can happen with this. Alright, and then at least 25 completed, whether it's 25 word ones, whether it's 25 completed ones on screenshots, whether it's 5 printed out ones and scanned in, whether it's 25 responses, it's 25, not 24. Once again, all of us are marking 25, not 24, right? 24 and a half. Okay. Then the form is created electronically. Note that I want you to keep Google Forms in mind when we are marking this. It will be electronically, doesn't matter how. Okay. Appropriate headings with appropriate questions, at least biographical and questions, at least. Okay. Then 5 questions excluding biographical data such as gender. So the 5 questions should be about the topic, not anything else general. Note, because of Google Forms, the maximum 1 page has disappeared now. Okay, so that's no more part of the marking guideline. However, we wouldn't want them to have it in 5 pages, but we would want them to get the mark if it jumps over to the next page, if you get where I'm going with this. So there's a lesson here. Tell the kids that they shouldn't have a questionnaire with 17 pages. 1 question on each page. It should be short. That's what questionnaires are for. Alright? Then professional formatting and layout. Google Forms is automatic. Ne? No professional. If they do it in Word, however, there's an extra step involved. They must go and change the font and change the size, etc., etc. Okay, let's look at the spreadsheet.
Okay, sorry, I've got a question.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm back.
we're talking about all the questions have to be on 1 page.
No more.
Okay, but now when it goes to Google Forms, what are we going to do then?
It's not there anymore. So that maximum 1 page has been removed from the assessment grid now, completely.
Okay.
So if it's in Google Forms, we won't know. If it's not on 1 page, it's okay. Okay, so we moved that away now. That was an issue in the past, eh?
Yes.
Right, let's look at the spreadsheet. Spreadsheet, whether you download it from Google Sheets now, or whether you create it and capture it yourself, or whether you do it in Access and import it into Excel or export it out of Access into Excel, it does not matter, all right? As long as there's a spreadsheet. The column headings, lesson again. The column headings can't be long, full sentences. I find lots of them are actually just repeating the question, all right? Now, in the capturing, they can repeat the question, but in the summary, it can't be repeated. I don't like them repeating the question myself, okay? I have a problem with that because that's besides the purpose of Excel. Excel is not there for long sentences, okay? You want to do it in Word. Okay, then using filtering and sorting, summarize it. So basically, I don't say it should be like that, but because there's a mark for more than 1 sheet, I would think that there's 1 for the capturing, 1 for the summary, and 1 for the graph. Okay?
There's
Then-
also one issue. I think there is that external data still there.
It's still there.
So that could be an extra sheet.
And then it could be a fourth sheet for external data. Alright? By the way, someone gave me a good idea. I'll share it with you now about that additional data. 2 graphs, eh? Okay, marking. Separate worksheet for results, as long as there's more than one worksheet. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. 1 for capturing, 1 for results or summary, and 1 for graph. Well done. Well-designed layout. Here, this is very, very subjective. For me, I like to know what I'm seeing when I see it. But when I moderate, what you think is well-designed and what I think is well-designed differs. Alright? So basically, I'm looking for minimum of column headings should stand out, just like in Word. Headings should stand out. The sizes should at least match the content. Things like that. If there's borders and things, those borders must make sense to me. Can't be the whole thing has borders now. Alright? So the results or the data has borders or things like that. There should be, if it's long, then merge it at least. Okay, so those are the minimum things I look for when I moderate. Okay, I don't want it to only look like it's been captured, like the Google Sheet I just saw now. Okay, right, then the same with a well-formatted with appropriate consistent formatting. Very, very subjective, but the focus is on consistent. Okay, so I'm a color person. It's green here, and now all of a sudden it's purple there, and orange there, and pink here, and yellow this side. That's too much, right? So it's consistent. And then easy to read, also very subjective. What you can read and what I choose to read differs. All right? I choose to read things that are easy to read.
I find a few kids doing that beautiful, perfect formatting only on the questionnaire result page and not on the summary and the graphs page. So
Consistent.
yes, they lose the consistent one, right? But the rest they can get.
I would say. Okay, because once again, I don't know if you're noticing, but this year I'm focusing on the words that are used there. Alright? So if the word consistent is there, then I want it consistent. But if the word consistent is not there, then it's okay if it's one place. Is it? Okay. Now we should all mark the same. Right. Then we said that. There's still Vanessa's asking about the other data. So there's still that 1 mark for other data. How much other data? Not much, right? Because if it's too much, then they spend too much time for that. Okay? I'll come back to this other data just now. I thought it was a good idea. Marking. Only appropriate data are captured. So download the Google Sheets, it's in Excel. Okay, done. Relevant processing and analysis of data. Relevant functions with no processing errors. Any functions. Here we get to the carbon copy thing as well. Ne? If you've got 217 learners in your class and all 217 learners use exactly the same functions, it's a problem. Alright? They should be able to analyze what they've got and come up with a function. Yes, you can walk around and say, okay, VLOOKUP here, nested if there, use a sum ifs, use a count ifs, whatever. But all 217 learners having exactly the same 4 functions is too much help. Alright? Be careful of that. Other data than the questionnaire or the survey, so there is 1 mark for other data. Okay? And then the processing is done correctly. Okay, so here's me, a strict person. If they have calculated something and they have missed the bottom row or the top row in their calculation, then I would say, but it's not calculating correctly. Okay? That's just me. Okay. Then you did the summary, and you did the summary now, and then you created 2 graphs, right? Okay. And these graphs must be appropriate. Now, again, we have issues regarding people creating graphs for male and female. Appropriate or not. And people creating graphs for ages, for example. Okay? Now, you need to, and here's me, if, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, But if you want to choose a graph that shows male or female, when we get to the findings, I want to see why you did it. Alright? Because I'm not saying it's not relevant, but I'm also not saying it's always relevant. It's just easy to have a male-female because it's there. And it's a pie, males, females. Alright? But there should be a point to your graph. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think the Google Forms will actually, the summary of the Google Forms will give them an idea of you don't have to use male or female. You can actually have 3 options and then that makes your pie. Maybe that's a better idea than using male or female. Once again, go back and come back. I said no male, female. But if you choose to ignore me and you want to do male or female, when I get to the findings, I want to read the purpose of this. Because I want to know why you chose male or female. Let's take it one step further. All the charts must have the following: a chart title, a data label, access titles, legends where possible. Alright, obviously not all types of charts allow that. Also, I find some funny ones, the stacked and the, what's that one with the little dot ones? And I find all kinds of funnies, right? The fact that there's a graph is not necessarily a good graph, right? We'll look at the mark now. Yes?
I just want to ask regarding the extra additional data that you did there. Because, for instance, learners can have a spreadsheet in the form of additional data from the internet. Do they still have to go and analyze the data, or if they do it for the questionnaire, it's fine?
I would say, depending on what that data looks like. If I download the spreadsheet and the spreadsheet makes sense to me, it's like looking at it, let's just look at the mark, if you are unsure. Analysis includes relevant, appropriate data other than the questionnaire. So relevant, appropriate, and it makes sense to me. Okay? If they just download some other, you know, they do the location, they love the GIS data, the location thing, and then they just download the sheet because it comes in an Excel sheet. And they just slot that in. I wouldn't take that without understanding what's going on. I'll come back to your analysis just now of that data, because if you put it just now like I'm going to show you in the findings, then they'll have to analyze it. Okay. What else? Let's see. Marks, one graph, a second graph that will contribute to the solution. So that's what I'm saying. If I want to do male-female, then they must tell me how it's going to contribute to the solution. Are you telling me that males throw more plastic on the ground than females? What's your point here? Is your point that males kill the rhinos and not females? What's the point of this male-female thing? Alright? Because yes, in certain of the PAT topics, male-female does make a difference. But in this, for example, if you want to do male-female, what are you telling me? Are you telling me that women, because we put on makeup, are killing the planet more than males? Or what,
Yes.
What's your point here? Are we?
Yeah, that's a good
Careful,
point there.
careful, Ganesh. Careful. There must be a point. Alright?
Sometimes they miss it totally. So they do a lens function on the survey, they put that in a graph, and they put it to the findings as well. They lose all those marks.
I wouldn't say they would lose all the marks,
Okay.
because there are certain marks that you can allocate even if the functions are not making sense.
Will you show us when
Yes.
please?
Yes. I mean, Shiny did a lane.
Yeah, but it also say appropriate.
We'll see now. Alright. Appropriate types of graphs and options used. Show them why pie, why column, why this, why that, and all the thingies that we can read it. Okay, let's see. Here, they can get marks, right? So the len will give them a mark here, because it says simple functions, single, straightforward, one parameter functions. I like the parameter thing, because level 1, a sum, has got one bracket with one cell reference there, ne? One parameter. A function like a large has a large function, a bracket, something, comma, something, 2 parameters. But there are exceptions, ne? Like for example, a sum if has got 3, alright? But a count if has 2, while a count ifs has 3, while a sum ifs has, if there's a double sum ifs, then it's 5. What? 5 or 6, right? Range, criteria, 5. Could be 7, depending, ne? So be careful when you just blindly look at that. That's the one thing. The second thing is also there's an or. Alright? Look at the or. It doesn't have to be a function. It can be a formula that contains functions. Alright? So look at the or. If they're using a sum and they don't want to use a sum, but they do something, divide by something, they can still get a level 1. If they want to use a function and they are going to do a round for it, for example, rounding something, then it's a level 2. Okay? There's a level 3 as well. A combination of more than 2 functions, so it's 2 parameters of arithmetic operators, brackets, and other functions. So it's already 3, right? Minimum. So just be aware of the ors, okay? Because when we moderate, we find that you only look at the function, but you forget if there's a formula as well. Alright? Some kids are good with formulas, some are not. A lookup, a nested if, or anything that's not in the caps. If they don't want to use a VLOOKUP, but they want to do the index and match, not in the caps. Alright?
A wonderful one for that is average if. It's not in caps, it works exactly like count ifs, or like sum ifs. Or some if even, and there, male and female is extremely relevant.
Yeah.
There you can say, how much do males care about sea life compared to females, for example. And it's better using an average if than a sum if, because sum if is skewed by the number of males and females that you've had. So that's my favorite for the number 4.
Or a VLOOKUP, or an HLOOKUP, or a lookup.
Just something that I realized a while ago. I thought if they just, let's say they have the nested if function, you can't award 4 marks for that. It's 1 mark because it just has the nested if.
Yeah, it used to be like that actually. We got a lot of criticism. Yeah. We'll see about, I don't know, remember, I'll check, remind me, Vinesh, just to check the grade 10 again. But it used to be like that, 1 mark for level 1, 2 marks for level 2, 3 marks for level 3, 4 marks for level 4. But now a kid that puts the average if gets 4 marks without doing anything else, and a child that does 4 level 1s will only get 1 mark. So there was more criticism with that way than with this way. So 1 of each, right? If they do 4 sums, for example, they will still just get 1 mark. Alright? So be aware that it's 1 mark each. Again, sorry, just to say, again, the level at which they are thinking is deeper the higher the level over here. In other words, if they just want to do a sum, and most of them just do a sum and an average and a count, okay? Not much thinking regarding that. But the moment that you get to an average if, or an average ifs, even further, then the thinking is deeper, much, much deeper. So, your question about should they get the mark now? Yes.
It's a meaningful calculation. I just look at the rubric.
We'll check now.
Yeah.
I'll check now.
Totally, it's a meaningful.
Okay. So, in other words, what you're saying is.
It's not meaningful.
What is not meaningful? What is.
To count the surname's length. To say the surname got 8 letters in.
Okay. Yeah, that's not meaningful.
It's not meaningful. That's.
Or a sum of the age.
Yeah, that's unless they want to divide it by the count of the age, and then they do a function, a double. Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, not. Well, again, you are there, ne? You are there. Right. Database. 1 table, meaningful field names, data types formatting, data units single. So remember the Google Forms now, name and surname that I was referring to here. Okay, then 1 table, appropriate names. Yeah, this one's also subjective. What is appropriate for you is not appropriate for me. Some people allow them to repeat the question. Some people don't. Alright? So, I'm talking about the moderators now. If you are moderating and you are not sure whether it's meaningful or not, I'm going to go as far as to say, unless it's field 1, field 2, or a complete repetition of the whole question, then obviously not. But if it's a summary of the question, that's a different story. Alright? So, yeah, be careful.
The key idea of the question.
Yes. But if they just copy and paste the question, I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to say is there was no thinking here. There was just doing it. Alright? They just went and copied. That's easy. Right, then next one is they've got appropriate data types. There's sizes extra here that hasn't been there in the past. Okay, so it's data type, sizes, and formatting. Now, you could have the formatting or not. But the data types must be right. And the sizes, now that one's added there. If it's a short text, then they must change. We're teaching them to change it to less than 255. But now, what if it's 200? Are we going to allow it or not? Depending on what the data is. Because we are teaching, remember it's a teaching opportunity. We are telling them that you can't have it in 200 if you're only going to use 10. Alright? Something like that. Teaching opportunity. Then all, that one is still the same. All fields contain single data units. That's fine. Right, so we've got one validation rule and validation text, one combo box and one input mask, at least, right? And then I always ask them, but I still haven't found it yet. But if you put the input box, input mask on this field in the description, just put input mask there so that I know which one to go to. But you know by now that you just scroll down and see. Which one has got the input mask, which one's got the validation rule, etc. Teaching opportunity for practical, your validation text must match your validation rule. Okay? So see the teaching opportunities while you are doing the PAT. Okay. Marks didn't change. All of them have got an appropriate size. If there's one appropriate validation rule, appropriate combo box, appropriate input mask, just note that the validation rule and the validation text is together. Alright? So they can't have a validation rule and not a validation text. They can't have a validation text and not a validation rule. Teaching opportunity at the same time.
Now size is repeated there. How's it different from the previous one?
Let me see.
This
This one has sizes. Yeah. This one's got sizes, so they've basically changed it. Alright?
So is that field size or what do they refer
It
to
depends.
sizes?
Probably
Do they
not
refer
just
physical size, like it shows the data?
No, this is field. This is field as well.
Okay,
Right.
so field size, but then it's the same as the other one.
Which means it wasn't added new.
Yeah, shouldn't have been added.
So it should, because now it's double.
Let me see. An appropriate data type, an appropriate size, and appropriate formatting. Yeah. So I would then not penalize twice. Alright? That's a slip up, but okay. Shouldn't have been there. Just remember to take it out for next year. Okay. What else? Okay, the processing, no, 20 records, not 25, because we penalize them if they don't have 25 questionnaires, but then they penalize them there and penalize them here if they've got 24. Alright? But if they've got 19 here, then it's a problem. Okay? Once again, you are there, so you should tell them. Marks, nothing changed here. 20 records, doesn't have to be 25. One relevant query, another relevant query, and one relevant report. Someone asked me, why is form not here? I don't know. Good question. Just capture it, but good question. I don't know. Right. Then the last level is the grouping, right? You're seeing this more often in the practical question paper now. So teaching opportunity. Alright, to say, okay, here's the grouping and this is how you do it. But just teach them that it's not a blind grouping. It should be a grouping that makes sense. In other words, in this case, it counts all the yeses for this specific field. Alright? Or it could be grouped grouped by counting the gender, or it could be grouped by a yes for the do you pay your e-tolls, for example. Teach them, teaching opportunity. Not just switch on the grouping and then just add whatever you want. Some of them switch on the grouping but don't actually do the calculation for the grouping. Okay? Marks, simple criteria. Again, same story as Excel. 1 mark for each level. Alright? So, be aware of the ORs. In this case, it's a combined criteria between conditions and relational operators, like the between, or one field with a criterion including wildcards. So it's 2 things, the criteria and the wildcard, for example. Here it's 3 things. A calculated field, date and time functions. This is where Gauteng that one year there was lots of kids did an I-if, right? Yeah. And then the question paper in the final exam didn't request an I-if, but because many of the kids do an I-if here, they automatically fell for the I-if in the final exam. Alright? But the point I'm trying to make is be aware that you can teach them something new here, and it's not wrong if they if they use it in the final exam and it works. Alright? Teaching opportunity. Alright, the report is straightforward. Just be aware that you can't give the mark for the calculation in the grouper and the group footer if it hasn't been grouped. Okay, we have that issue. It's sorted, there's a calculation in the report, then it's grouped, and then there's a calculation in the group footer or the group header. Okay, so the last 2 marks go together. They can get the 3rd mark but not the 4th one. But they can't get the 4th one and not the 3rd one. And if they don't get the 3rd one, they can't get the 4th one. Alright? Automatically. Then what do we do now? So now we've got the report. Now, we need to have 3 things underneath findings then. So we could have the 2 graphs that you did in the spreadsheet and put it underneath findings. That's fine. But you should have a 3rd thing as well, because the findings requests you for 3 things. And that's where that additional data comes in now. That's not part of the questionnaire. In other words, they've got additional data. Let them create a graph for that or some kind of something and then put that in the findings as well. Now you've got 3. Because what happens is they do the 2 graphs, but they don't do the 3rd thing. Or then they go to the database and then they bring the table, which doesn't make any sense. Okay? So my suggestion is that you've got the questionnaire and the 2 graphs, right? So go to the additional data that's not from the questionnaire, let them do something there and bring it to the findings as well. Then they can basically just use the spreadsheet and put that into the findings. Okay? Alternatively, 2 graphs and something from the database.
Sorry, you can't do 3 graphs.
You can. Nothing stops you from doing 3 graphs. Just 2 will be marked, but nothing stops you.
No, see, for
You can use all
the
3
final
in your findings. Yeah.
Sorry, going back to Excel then. I have lots of kids doing like 6 graphs. Are they like? Do they all have to be appropriate, eh?
Let's look at the marking guideline. So everything else fails, let's follow the marking guidelines. So the marking guideline says 1 meaningful graph, 2nd meaningful graph, so we're taking 2 appropriate types of graphs. Okay, so is it for the 2 or for all? And they are easy to read and interpret. So I'll give the 2 top marks, but if they do more than 2, then I'm sorry, they need to do it for all of them. Once again, only do 2. Okay, do 3 now because we need it in the findings. Or do 2 and do the database. Okay, now if they chose to tell me about males and females, and they did a graph on males and females, then when we get here, I want to know why they are doing males and females. They must tell me a story about, are males saving the planet more than females, or what's the story here? Okay, and that's where I'm going to look at it. So basically, what have we got now? We've got the report with a cover page and the table of contents, and the introduction, which has the task definition and the focus question. Then we've got the headings, the 3 headings with information in it. Then now we've got the findings. So we've got 3 graphics things, whether it's 2 graphs and a screenshot from the database, whether it's 3 graphs, whatever, we've got 3 things, and a story underneath it telling me why it's there and why I chose to do that. And then while we're at it, let them insert a caption in each of those 3 graphics, whatever they are, a caption for each of them, and now they can go and do the table of figures. Alright, as well. And then we don't have anything for conclusion yet. Alright, but we do have the bibliography because we did it in phase 1, and then the appendix for the table, we've got that. Alright, so the only thing left is finalizing the cover page, the introduction, getting it different, and then writing a conclusion. Everything else is done. Okay, that's why I said 240 minutes for the report is a waste. Okay.